In this video, I'm going to show you how I made a modular 3D printable snowman for 1/18 scale action figures. Hi everybody, it's Adrian from Zanza's Toys with the second of two videos on some snow-themed 1/18 scale 3D printable toys. So as I mentioned in my last video, my wife and I were recently visiting her family in Chicagoland, and we saw some really substantial snow, which is really fun at first. One of the really cool things about snow is you get to make snowmen. While we were snowed in, I figured what better to do with that time than make some 3D printable toys. So I made a snowman, and while this is really simple, what makes it kind of fun is that it's modular. So you can take the parts apart and kind of recombine them in any order you want. You can have multiple middles if you want. And all of the parts go together kind of like a potato head toy. So the parts come out and slot in. You can replace, there's two different noses, two different shapes for the coal bits, for the eyes and the buttons, and two different mouths. So between that and also the ability to kind of turn things around in these square shafts, you get a pretty wide variety of different individual snowmen, or snow people. And this all scales well with 1/18 scale figures, because of course it does, because I'm me. Okay, so let's look at how this all goes together. So I have the base snowman parts here, the bottom, the middle, with holes for the arms and holes for the buttons, and then the top, which has holes for eyes, nose, and mouth. I also made a version of the middle with buttons integrated. So this was just a little bit of sculpting in Blender, just a little quick go around with the draw and crease tool to get those in. But ultimately I really liked this better with putting the coal buttons in as separate parts. It just makes them feel like more of a kit, and I think it's more fun that way. So yeah, so I printed out all the parts in different colors, and I used a variety of techniques to make this stuff. I started by making the base shapes in FreeCAD. This was really straightforward, just some simple revolutions. I also added some square pegs and corresponding holes so the parts could stack on top of each other. While I was in FreeCAD, I also made a shape to serve as the negative for the various pegs. I knew I'd be using 1.6mm by 1.6mm shafts, so I made a 2 by 2mm peg, as 0.2mm on each side is usually a good amount of tolerance for this kind of thing. Once I had that, I was ready to actually poke holes into the body sections. For that I used OpenSCAD. There wasn't anything too complicated here, just a helper function to position the peg hole STL, and a difference operation to subtract it out. Now it was time to work on the parts to go into the holes, starting with the arms. For the arms, I started in Inkscape. I've done this kind of thing before, most notably in my Halloween fashion plate style drawing toy, so check that out if you haven't seen that video. I started out by exporting an SVG of the base parts from FreeCAD to serve as a reference. I knew I wanted the arms to be fairly simple, stick-like shapes, but with a specific width. I started by just drawing a simple bent arm shape as a path. I made sure that the stroke style was set to 1.6mm, and then converted the path to shape and saved the doc. I still haven't found a good way to export just a single element as an SVG from Inkscape, so I used my standard trick of opening up the SVG in a text editor and deleting everything I didn't want. That left me with just the arm shape itself. From there I fired up OpenSCAD, imported the arm SVG, and added a linear extrude to make it 1.6mm thick. I exported the arm from OpenSCAD as an STL. I wanted to both bevel the edges and create a few variations with different poses, so for that I brought it into Blender. I started by beveling the edges to round things off, then beveled the top and bottom faces a slight bit as well. I added a really simple skeleton to the arm in order to pose it. This was kind of overkill, but I thought I would want to make more variations. Ultimately though, I thought that one bent and one straight arm were enough, so especially given that you can position them in different directions when you insert them. With the arms done, it was time to work on the coal pieces for the eyes and the buttons. I used FreeCAD for that, starting out with a simple 1.6mm shaft, and then added a pad on the front, one for a circular shape and one for a square. While I was at it, I also created base shapes for the carrot nose and stick mouth based on the same 1.6mm square shaft. The carrot nose started out as a plain cylinder, but to make it into a proper carrot, I brought it into Blender and got to work. I started by tapering the front and extruding it a bit to give it a bit of a point. Once I was happy with the base shape, I switched over to sculpting to make it a bit more organic. I made sure to mask the shaft and the bottom faces before starting to actually sculpt, so that it would still fit into the peg hole. The sculpting itself wasn't anything too special. I just added some ridges perpendicular to the length and worked back and forth between adding lumpiness and smoothing until it looked like a more organic carrot-like shape. I also used Blender to make a variation of the mouth that was bent to be either a smile or a frown. That was really simple. I just selected the vertices at either side and moved them up, then adjusted the proportional editing threshold to get a smoother curve. So that's it. So let's look at how this all actually fits together into a snowman. So for the main body, you just snap the pieces together. Easy enough. There we go. And then you just put stuff in how you want it. So one kind of nice thing about the shafts being square is that you can rotate them around and they'll keep that positioning. So right now we have the snowman's hands facing parallel to the camera, but if we take this out and just rotate it 90 degrees, now it's parallel to the ground, which gives you a slightly different expression. It's especially different if we use the bent arm. So we can have snowman reaching up, snowman reaching down, snowman reaching forward, like maybe a zombie snowman coming after you, and snowman bending their arms back, like they're about to dive into a pool or something. So it gives you a lot of expressiveness for, not many specific arm shapes, which is why I felt fine just having the two, just a straight and a bent. But if anybody wants to make more, please feel free. It's pretty easy. You just need a 1.6 millimeter square shaft going into here, and then whatever you want. Then for the rest of the snowman, it just goes together just like a potato head toy. So I'm going to put in some buttons first. So I'm using the round version for this, which I think is a little bit better fit for the buttons. Okay, there we go. So we got buttons. And now let's add some eyes. I'm going to mix it up. I'll put a round one and a square one. So we get kind of an interesting expression there. And now we've got, let's put a mouth in. And I don't know about you guys, but I'm in a pretty good mood, so I'm going to make this snowman a smiling snowman. We could make him a frowning snowman. So we could have him frowning. We also have there's also just a straight expression, so we can just kind of have a default snowman, like so. But I'm going to stick with a happy snowman. So I printed these all out in brown, the mouth and the arms to kind of like suggest sticks that you might find. But obviously, you feel free to print in whatever color makes sense for you and that you like. And then finally, I'm just going to put the nose in. And there we go. We have a snowman that's very happy about something. So that's it for this video. The second of 2 snow-themed 1/18 scale toys. I hope you enjoyed watching it. If you want to make one of these for yourself, I'll have a link down below to the files for free. And if you'd like to see more, please don't forget to like, comment, share, subscribe. All of that helps a lot. It's very much appreciated. Thanks so much, and I'll see you next time.